Welcome to another episode of the Phoenix Mystery School podcast. Today, I'm going to be talking about land clearings because it's something that I've done for a very long time and recently started doing more of the Akashic clearings for properties, houses, land, you name it, because it's all one in the same. But when I work with many people about their property, they don't see the property usually as an extension of themselves. They also don't see the property as its own energy and being. They don't see how their energy actually influences the energy of a space. And it's okay because most don't know about the energetics. And that is why I'm here, so I can share that information with you and also provide some little tools, tips, and tricks that you can actually utilize in your space to help create more harmony, more peace, more ease, more fun, more cohesion. Because at the end of the day, our space should be like our sanctuary. It should be the place that we feel the most comfortable, relaxed, and loved in our space. And it's all dependent on the person. What would you like to experience in your space? That is number one. What is the energetic quality you would love to feel in your space? For me, how I describe it is sanctuary, because sanctuary to me means peace, means ease, it means rest, it means connection to self. It's a place that I go to reset, rebalance, and just to feel very calm. For some people, they want their space to feel free. They want their space to feel expansive. They want their space to feel loving. So, once you know how you want your space to feel, write that intention down. Put it everywhere that you will see it every single day. Because when you do action in your home, whether it's making a meal or lighting a candle or doing the dishes or just relaxing, whatever actions you take in your home, even a phone call, you want to remember that intention of the property. And you want to do your best to embody that present or future version of you that already feels that way. And then take action from there. It's easier to start when you're making a meal or having a bath, stuff that you normally do in your home, but really feeling into the emotional quality as you do those things. And I know this works because if I make a meal when I am truly pissed off, I will burn everything. And it's not because I'm not paying attention. It's not because the heat is too high. It's actually quite funny that the emotions you carry, it translates into everything that you're doing. It doesn't matter how perfectly I follow a recipe when I'm not in alignment with myself. It won't turn out, or it'll burn, something will happen, and it just won't taste good. Because energy is everything, guys. It truly is. But if I took time to center myself, to be in that state of love, to really feel into like that sanctuary, that nourishment, that yumminess of my space, and then I make a meal, it turns out perfect every time. I could royally mess up the recipe and it still turns out perfect. And I actually remember in cooking class, I would do this. And the teacher would be so dumbfounded. She's like, I watched you mess up that recipe 100 times over, and here's the perfect biscuit or, the perfect meal that I created in that class. She's like, I don't get it. And at the time, I didn't either. But now I understand it's all in the energy that you hold as you do that action. So remember your intention, your emotions, how you are being in your space is always number one. If you don't start to do some emotional intelligence and some self-awareness, you will always feel like a victim in your space if it isn't harmonious. You will always feel disconnected, like things just keep happening and oh my God, this place is chaos, right? And it's good to look at what's going on in your life as a reflection of what's going on in your space. I notice this quite often that anytime that I've engaged in drama or chaos outside of me, like at work or in a friend group, it translated in the home. Things would start breaking, things would stop working, things just wouldn't function properly or harmoniously. And it's because the energy that we carry in our energy field around us too. So no, you do not need to be this perfect human being. You do not need to be this perfect spiritual being. You just have to be mindful of your emotions and how you're working through them. This means you can't have emotions and you can't do things, but you have to be aware of them and to sit with them and allow them to release. And one thing I tell my clients all the time is that if you actually just sat with your emotions and just allowed them to be, they wouldn't stay forever. They would eventually dissipate. It's energy in motion. And I want you to realize as well that your emotions are a part of you. They are a neurotransmitter. They are not you, though. Much like our hormones are a part of us and they have functions, they have certain qualities, it's still not us, right? Like we don't identify with our hormones. We don't identify with our thymosin. It's a part of us and a part of the greater functioning of our system. Absolutely. But it is not us as a conscious being, right? Like they are a bit different, even though it is a part of us. We don't identify with that one specific thing. Just like we shouldn't identify with one specific emotion. So if you can say things like name your emotions. For example, I am feeling sad instead of saying I am sad. You may not realize it, but in the subconscious mind, it really starts to create the identity that I am sadness. And you will experience more and more and more sadness because you're holding on to it as an identity in the subconscious. Consciously, you don't think that way. Consciously, you're saying, Cassandra, I know I'm not my emotions. I know I'm not identifying with them. But depending on what you say has a huge influence energetically in your body. So just try that. Anytime you're feeling something in the body, name it and where you are feeling it. And I share these simple little tools with you because sure, they're simple. They're not easy. And I feel like it's something that everyone needs to know so that they can create more harmony in their space. So that they don't feel like, what's happening in my space? There's all this crazy stuff. I see these entities or, these spirits and things are breaking and things are loud and I don't know what's going on, but I have these weird feelings. Because once you work through your emotions and what's coming up for you in the moment, they have nothing to attach to. Remember, like energy attracts like energy. This is one of the universal laws, right? This is the law of attraction. I know you hear a lot about it and all the misperceptions, but just take into the account the emotions if you're not dealing with them. That's why certain spirits stay around because they have a similar vibration too. And they're like, oh, great. Someone else who's feeling similar. And that's how they get life force energy. So no, you're not a victim to spirits. You're not a victim to entities. You just have to be aware of how you might be subconsciously feeding them, right? And it starts with our emotions first. So anytime you're in that deep space of sadness or self-sabotage, really own it, label it, understand it, feel it, really be in it. Once it's fully dissipated, then you can go into the logical processing. Okay, I have felt like I wasn't good enough or inferior because my childhood, because my dad or my mom or my aunt or my teacher, right? And then you can logically put those pieces together, but you have to feel it first if it's coming up in your body. That is first and foremost. Then you can logically process, but in a way of where you are there to be empathetic and understanding to yourself. You're not there to make yourself feel like a failure even further. You're not there to be like, oh, I feel this way because of X, Y, Z, and I'm a terrible person. Be more empathetic and compassionate with the experiences that you've had, whether you're the victim or perpetrator in the past, because we've all been every position of that victim triangle, okay? We've all been a perpetrator. We've all been a victim. We've all been an observer who did nothing. We've all experienced it at some level. And this is why compassion is so important for moving forward and really healing those aspects. It's also important in your space, in a relationship, to both have that sense of emotional intelligence. Because if one is growing and the other isn't, that can create a huge rift as well. And eventually, if one person is growing and the other isn't, then eventually they will end up separating. This is why a lot of people don't grow, because they're afraid that their partners might not. So they might not give them the opportunity to be initiated there, or they do go through that process. So very important to know these pieces first before you ever attempt your own land and space clearing, because usually this will clear up the majority of it. Because if you're not owning your stuff, if you're not working through it, things will just keep happening in your house. Okay. So this is very, very common. And, I hate to say this, but it's true. If you do not get a handle on what's going on inside of you, it will come outside of you, especially in the terms of anger. Anger, when not dealt with and suppressed, will always manifest outside of you. And this is where most people are like, there's an entity in my house, there's a poltergeist. But really, it's just their materialized anger that they haven't dealt with coming outside of them saying, hey, deal with me. Figure this out. It comes out to show you what you are avoiding. And that's true anger stuff, right? Avoidance perpetuates more anger, more resentment, more explosion, because it's lack of movement when you're suppressing. So all of our emotions play a huge part in our body. So instead of looking at emotions like, they're bad, I shouldn't have them, they're uncomfortable, start realizing that they all have a specific function. And if you go to my TikTok, Phoenix Mystery School, I actually have an emotional series that I'm working through right now. One is on anger so far, one is on joy, sadness, and I'm going to go through all the 5 emotions so you have a better picture. So go there if you need some help understanding what our emotions actually do, because it's really helpful to know. So once you have a handle on all those things, typically in the home, a lot, if not most, things will actually resolve because there's nothing to feed into, right? Absolutely nothing. And if you have kids, then you need to teach your kids how to do these things too, which is always so fun. I have a 7, almost 8-year-old, and I know it can be really hard and difficult as a parent. I feel you. I see you. I understand. We get overwhelmed, overstimulated. Like, why aren't they listening? And maybe many times they're really, really good, and other times they're totally different. But the important thing is you're planting seeds with your children, and you're also leading by example. And even though you may not be perfect all the time, obviously, because it's never going to happen, not even me, trust me, I have my moments, I melt down too, I get overstimulated. It happens. But what I do with my child is if I have a meltdown moment, if I have an overstimulated moment, once I am able to regulate myself and get out of it, I explain. I am really sorry that you experienced that. I was overstimulated, and this is what I'm going to do move forward. This is how I'm going to try and handle it better. Make sure I have my spoons in the freezer for the back of my neck, right? Go splash some cold water on my face. Make sure I pause, do some deep breathing, right? Catch what's going on in the moment. Explain to my child because, manifester in human design and everything else, I get overwhelmed very easily. I'm also internal in my manifesting blueprint. So manifester, internal, I need alone time. Maybe not entirely a lot, but I do need to have my space and I need to have my boundaries with my child and everyone else in my life. Like, this is what I need. I need my set alone time to recharge. So next step would be to make sure that you have boundaries and you have cohesion in your space too. Again, it does not need to be perfect. But if everyone is on board with the same intention, it just adds to the level of harmony there. So again, once you have all that, things become pretty clear in the space. Not to say that things won't ever happen, because guess what? We have our realm, we have the astral realm that is pretty close to ours. Sometimes the veil is thinner, whatever, spirits come and go. It happens. But they will stay so much more or less when you're regulated and understanding your emotions. They will pretty much never stick around because there's nothing to hook into. There's nothing to support their energy in staying around. And they will leave. So they might come in, but they'll leave. So the purpose of house clearings is not to make sure that nothing ever comes in again. It's to make sure that there's nothing for them to hook into, nothing to feed into. And even if they do hook into you, again, you're not a victim, okay? If they do attach, they are showing you something. It is a gift in my mind. Truly, it is. Whether I've dealt with entities hooked onto me or just regular spirits that haven't crossed over, I have always learned something from them. And that is what I have loved so much about it. At first, it scared me, yes, but I've taken 12 years to fully dive into the shadow, to fully dive into the darkness and entities and demons, you name it. They are showing you something about your own shadow and light. They're showing you unresolved issues that you might have. And again, it isn't about becoming perfect and having nothing for them to hook into. It's about understanding if they do hook into you, what is it? And how can you shift and release and detach? I know that might sound like a lot, but one of the entities I had attached to me many, many moons ago was there because I always felt alone. I felt like I was alone in my family. I felt like I was alone in my friend group. Like I was surrounded by people all the time, but I was lonely. I felt like no one understood me or saw me or got me. I was so alone. I felt like I was always the scapegoat for everything, always the person to blame. So I really had this identification of being the black sheep, the scapegoat, and the loneliness emotion attached to all of that. So subconsciously, all I wanted was that sense of connection because I didn't see my own worth or value. I didn't see myself. And I thought if I had people that saw me, then I would see me. But again, I'm internal. So for me, it's opposite. For some people, they need that external recognition. And to some extent, I need the external recognition too as a manifester, but I need to recognize myself first for anyone else to see it. And for some people, it's actually the opposite. So once I understood that I wasn't seeing myself, I wasn't seeing the value in me, I was able to start looking at, okay, how can I see myself in where I celebrate and love myself? And I started looking at all the ways in which I was proud of who I am. Even if other people didn't understand or get it, even if other people didn't like it, these are things that I actually loved about myself, but was taught to not love because it's weird. And now I say I'm weird, but in a loving way. I don't say it as self-deprecation because remember, words only interact in the intention that it is said. So now when I say, I'm weird, I actually love it. I love my weirdness. I love my quirks. I love being different. I love the fact that I remote view. I love the fact that I do healing work. I love the fact that, even as a child, I saw things like Palladians and Syrians and ships. I love all these weird, quirky things that most people are like, that is not my reality. And that's okay. It does not need to be. But as an internal, similar blueprint person, I do need more people that are unique like that are weird like that are similar to me like that. So just remember that the more that you understand what they're showing you, what this attachment is showing you, you can go inward and you can release that attachment by actually loving yourself, by knowing you don't need an entity to help you to feel not lonely anymore. And that was kind of that subconscious agreement. Like, I will help keep you strong and I will help keep you company, in exchange for life force energy. And I don't need to do that. I don't need anything external anymore. So I know this is like a weird example, but if there's some random spirit that attaches to you that has the energy of, say, anger, it's showing you what unresolved anger you have. Where have you been holding on to resentment or hatred or blame? Towards who? And can you actually write it down? Maybe do a fire ceremony. Maybe approach that person and say, hey, I've been holding on to this for a long time and I never told you. Can we have a conversation together? Can we talk about this and find a solution? And then you can go into, in this situation, I felt angry because I felt betrayed, or whatever the case may be. This is how I perceived it. What can we do to solve this? And it's interesting because I've done that with many people in my life. And they're like, oh, that was not the way that I perceived it. And this was my intention in the situation, or this is what was going on with me at the time. And I'm really sorry I never realized. So in the future, what I will do is do X, Y, Z, right? They will tell you what they're able to do. And then you can have a bit of a compromise there, right? And for me, moving forward, I said, okay, in the future, if I feel like this, I will share it with you so that I can get clarity. I don't share me being angry with someone to blame them or to hurt them. It's for them to understand how I perceived a situation. And if there's anything we can both do differently so it doesn't keep reoccurring. So when you see those attachments, it's really hard for things to constantly keep coming in, right? You can see them as a gift when they do happen, as a way to really go inward and see what it is you need to release. And that helps the property be clear. But if you don't know those things, and again, most people don't because we're not taught this, right? These are things that I've learned over the years of doing space clearings. But once you have that, your house will be pretty harmonious, right? And a lot of people do this without even realizing it's energetics. Most people are like, oh, I'm feeling angry a lot more, not realizing there might be an attachment, but then they'll work through it and understand it, release it, which also releases that attachment unknowingly. So I love that many people do this without even making the connections, and that's cool. But this is how you can keep your space mainly clear. Because usually things will happen in the house as things are happening in life. And again, doesn't mean you can't have crap scenarios happen in your life. Doesn't mean you can't go through hardships. You absolutely can. It's how you intentionally move through them that makes all the difference in your space. If your space feels tense and tight and thick in the air and just weird, then look at where else are you feeling that tenseness? Where haven't you really resolved that for yourself? Your space will always reflect what it is that you're holding on to. And then, again, intentionally bring in those energetic qualities that you want. And of course, if you've done all those things and nothing is shifting, then please come to me. I can help assist you. I love doing house and land and space clearings. I've done many of them over the last 12 years. They're one of my favorite things to do. And all you need to be is just the energetic owner. So if you're paying rent somewhere, then yes, you are the energetic owner because you're in that space paying rent at that point in time. Or you could be the physical owner as well. So there's many different ways in which we can do these clearings. I go through the Akashic records. I also incorporate a little bit of energy work at the end because fifth dimension, the third dimension, because Akashic records is in the fifth, right? The fifth dimension, it's a little bit of a higher frequency and it takes time to ripple out in the third dense reality. So that is what I do. I help connect the two. We do the clearings and releases, and it can take, a week sometimes for things to rebalance if there's a lot of shifting that needs to happen. And that's okay. That's why we do a little bit of the energy work too, to make that as easeful as possible, but also know that everyone has a journey that they will probably need to go through with their space as they clear things up. Sometimes people end up realizing that they just need to move, and that's okay. And other people can create a new way of relating to their home. Because there are other things that do happen, like the assignment of the land. And even you can be the most conscious, clear person, but if the assignment is not that of a home, like if the land is still holding on to old battles, or if the land is still holding on to old sacred sites, then we absolutely do a blessing around those experiences. We help those spirits release, we bless the space, we show gratitude to the ancestors and everything that was there before that is now allowing us to be in this space today, and opening up that timeline for future generations too. So there are some things that we can absolutely do to help tweak the space a little bit further. So if you have any questions about space clearings or land clearings, have you ever received one? And how was the result for that? Please let me know, like in the poll or comments, or you can even email me at trinitysage333@gmail.com. I absolutely love hearing from you guys, what your experiences have been, and hopefully this gives you a different perception around your space, your energy, your emotions, so that you don't see it as something outside of you that's controlling you. Ultimately, you are your divine creator. You are the creator of your reality, and that is powerful. You are not a victim to what's happening outside of you in your space. I love empowering my clients this way and getting them to relate to their property. Like the house clearings are so much more than that to me. It's like really understanding the people in the space and helping them to work through their own personal stuff too. It's great. It's fantastic. And I love it. So yeah, I would love to hear from you guys on if this helped you at all. If you have any questions, please let me know. But I'll catch you on the next episode of Phoenix Mystery School.